Welcome to the High-End Munich 2023. It's the first interview of the High-End Munich, actually, with Jason Gould. And we're here at the introduction of the new Naim 300 series and the Naim Nait 50, but we're going to talk about that later. Can you give me some insights on the new 300?
Yeah, sure. So the new 300 series essentially is a complete re-circuit design. It isn't just new livery. So, for example, probably one of the biggest changes circuit topology-wise is the preamplifier, and that it has an internal power supply, something we've never done with a high-end analog preamplifier before in our range. We've done this to keep the system simple to upgrade. We found that many end users and sometimes some dealers taxed by the way Naim equipment traditionally went together, and it was time to keep the sound quality but make it more of a modern system in the way it connects, and also connects to existing hi-fi, not only from our range but maybe other hi-fi which would like to be amalgamated with Naim.
Yeah, because there's one thing that we were praying for years, and that's actually a balanced input.
Of course, yeah. Balanced input. So that was a difficult one for us because we've always preferred single-ended.
Yeah, I know why. It has to do with the harmonics.
It does with the second and fourth harmonics actually get wiped out when you go fully balanced. We've actually do balanced impedance design from the back of the amplifier. The amplifiers are fully imbalanced, and in essence, we only have one signal generator, and the cold is left blank. When you get to the power amplifier, we flip it, and you get noise cancellation, but we keep the second and fourth order harmonic. So we actually have a very good, high quality balanced connectivity for long runs to active speakers, and at the same time short runs to source components, keeping the musicality, which is the most important thing for us.
Yeah, if you want to read about it, by the way, we have a white paper from Naim itself linked on our website, and you can find it in the article about the 200 series. There was one big point you were talking about with the introduction, that's backwards compatibility to older Naim gear.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some things that aren't backward compatible, but we reckon around 80% of our range is backward compatible. This is to do with legislation with transformers and not being able to use them. Essentially, we still can. We have a switch mode power supply which puts the product into a rest mode to save the environment and in some cases people's fuel bills.
Not completely unimportant.
It seems one thing buying the hi-fi, but running it is another story these days. This means things like high caps and traditional preamps and super caps and traditional preamps cannot be used with the new power supply. It does mean, however, that the MPX 300 can be used with NDX streamers, okay, and NDX2s, so backward compatible. It also means, of course, the 250 and the new NAP 350s can be used in existing systems. So if you're at the level of maybe a 552 with a 300, exchange it, listen to NAP 350s. It's a great upgrade.
It's an upgrade.
It's a big upgrade, yeah. Absolutely. You know, the NAP 350 now uses a dedicated power supply per channel. The NAP 300 had one power supply. Although it was removed from the box, it still had one power supply, which was spread across both channels. And now we have a power supply per channel, which gives us much better drive dynamics. And again, I'll use that word, better musicality, better cohesion with the way the band performs.
Do you think what struck me with the demo of the 200 series and now also the 300 series? I mean, it's a noisy environment, but you get an idea. Is that it's a little bit cleaner than the older series?
I think we always strive to remove as much noise away from the signal as possible. And in essence, if you remove noise, you amplify more signal, you get better musicality, and that leads quite nicely into the 332 volume control, which is actually a streamlined version of what we use in statement. It uses discrete components, and it uses a resistor ladder with 10 fine and 10 coarse switchable resistors, so that we have a very smooth, quiet transaction between various volume levels, but ultimately pure clarity in music. We no longer have that linearity problem of Blue Velvet Pots, which we love the sound of, but they're incredibly microphonic. They're not always linear. That problem has now gone away.
Some people like that.
I know. It's one of those name things that people liked.
One thing you mentioned the statement volume control, and we all love the design, by the way. At least I do. I hope you do as well. Does the 200 series also use that?
It does indeed. The 200 series does. Where we had to streamline that volume control one stage further is to use surface mount technology. And surface mount technology is great, but actually when you want to listen to that product, which you certainly do with the volume control, surface mount is soldered directly to the PCB board. When the PCB board gets warm, it starts to creak and move around, and that's interruption into that circuit, which effectively introduces noise. With the discrete component, which is used in the 332 and in statement, because the components are on wire legs, they're decoupled from the board and become impervious to those heat changes and flexes.
That's the big difference, because I was struggling to understand, but it's a space thing. Because in the 222 there's also a streamer and a DAC and everything.
DAC, power supply inside, absolutely. And with the 332 there's much more room inside, yeah.
Yeah, because there's actually a separate box for the streamer, by the way. That's one of the big differences between 2 and 300 series. Then, well, your 50th anniversary Naim Nait 50, if I'm correct?
Yeah. So, we showcased this wonderful product with our 50th approaching, and we thought, wouldn't it be nice to go back and do one of our retro amplifiers? Probably has one of the biggest followings next to the Nat 250, probably, and the Nait has been reintroduced. A modern twist. There's no balance control. If anybody's got a Nait from long ago, the balance was strange. It was kind of almost an image shift rather than balance left and right. It had a moving magnet phonostage, which this one has, very high quality, probably on the level of a Super Nait 3, and 2 DIN inputs, one labeled auxiliary, one which is also labeled stream, because we'd like to be adding stream. Auxiliary may be a CD player these days. It's got a powerful 25 watts per channel and has to have the ModCon half-watt standby, look after the environment and so on and so forth, which is what we've introduced into the new range. But a lovely sounding product.
Does it have the new signature? Is it like cleaner than the old one?
It very much has the new signature. I think people will plug it on and realize that it sounds like a Nait, but it's got this dynamic and speed that the original Nait could probably never do. It sounds wonderful. It's a clever product. And the 25 watts per channel, don't be put off by that. It's 25 Salisbury watts, which are very, very powerful.
Well, I noticed that the wattage is like 25 in 8, 40 in 4, 60 in 2, which is actually quite incredible for such a small box. It's not bad. It should be enough. Yeah. Is it completely stable to 2 ohms?
You wouldn't want to run it particularly loud at 2 ohms, but yeah, I think you're probably safer at 8 and 6, some 6 ohm loads. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. We've actually plugged it in, not to trial it, but just plugged it in onto very challenging speakers. So, for example, at our factory, we have a pair of Scala Utopias. You would never partner that product, but it drives them, and it's not.
It's a hard speaker.
Yeah, and it works. Yeah, it works very well.
Thank you for your time. You're gonna have a busy day, I suppose. Yeah.
We look forward to seeing many more people coming in and having a look.
Me too. Thank you. Bye bye.